We have Pubco Studios in Oklahoma City. You're watching the Press Row. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Barry Trammell, and we are brought to you by Papa John's Pizza. You can go online anytime and order your pizza at papajohns.com. Time for 5 and 5, Barry. 5 topics, about a minute each for 5 minutes. Let's get right to it with Lincoln Riley. Hey, finish this sentence. Lincoln Riley's hiring by OU is great news for
the younger generation. The guy is 31 years old, for crying out loud, and now he's been handed the OU offense. So, you know, Bob Stoops said he wanted some new blood and some young blood. Well, he certainly got it in Lincoln Riley. And here's what's interesting about Lincoln Riley, 31 years old, but he's had his own offense for 5 years. East Carolina gave him the reins at the age of 26. The coaches are getting younger and younger. So, you know, I do think the Sooner staff could use a dash of young blood and new thinking. So, you know, this is getting awfully young, but you don't see coaches like this that often that this occurs with. However, Bob Stoops was not much older than that when Bill Snyder handed him the K-State defense. So, you know, Stoops sort of maybe sees a little bit of Lincoln Riley in himself. The difference, of course, is that Lincoln Riley is not from a place like Youngstown, Ohio. He's from the greatly named place of Muleshoe, Texas. So it's great news for the young, and it's great news for Muleshoe, Texas.
I feel like a side trip to Muleshoe is coming at our next trip to Lubbock. You go to Plainview and then just go west.
Right. Yeah,
I think we may be headed to Muleshoe, folks. Okay, I thought long and hard about who this is great news for, and frankly, when I think about players at OU, I think the list could potentially be fairly long. I think it could be great news for Samaje Perine, who is going to be playing in an offense next year for the first time that knows how to throw the ball around a little bit. So think about the running lanes he had this year as opposed to the ones that he might be able to get next year when the defense doesn't know he's going to come at him as much as he did some of those games. Could be great news for those quarterbacks. Now, I think there's going to be some quarterbacks under the gun. I think you're going to see much demanded of guys like Trevor Knight, who did not play well at the end of the season or for much of the season. Some other guys, but Lincoln Riley's known for developing quarterbacks. So maybe some of these guys who've even struggled could see this as great news. I tell you a guy I'm interested to see if this doesn't become great news for. I know everybody's talking about Baker Mayfield. But what if this is really great news for Justice Hansen? He's a guy that threw it around a ton in high school. We haven't yet seen him at the college level. Maybe he's the guy. Maybe he's the guy that can handle the Lincoln Riley
You're
offense.
adding to the quarterback derby intrigue.
Hey, why not? All right, what about this one, Barry? Let's go on the flip side. Lincoln Riley's hiring is terrible news for
Trevor Knight. I don't think Trevor Knight fits the Lincoln Riley offense. Trevor Knight has vision problems in terms of when and where to throw the ball. The air raid offense is all about the quarterback coming to the line, seeing what's there, deciding where to throw it. And I don't know that plays to Trevor Knight's strength. You just talked about Justice Hansen, but of course Baker Mayfield has already shown that he can produce in the air raid tradition out at Texas Tech. So I think this is terrible news for Trevor Knight.
You know, I don't know who this is most terrible for, but I do think Trevor, like I said before, under the gun for sure, may not work great for him. But I think this is something we talked about in another Press Row segment, talking about Mike Stoops and the defense. I think this is going to put even more influence or even more impact on what that defense does. If they're not better next year, because I think we're going to see the OU offense be pretty high marks better than they were this year. So that defense had better bring it, or it's going to be pretty obvious that they're standing in mud and the offense is doing some different stuff, really making strides forward. I think that defense may be the one that could see this as some not so good news, specifically Mike Stoops. All right, true, false, Barry. Over the rest of the season, Reggie Jackson will average more minutes than Dion Waiters.
I'm going to say false, and I stand by that whether or not Reggie gets traded. I think Dion Waiters is a talented enough guy that the Thunder's going to go more and more to him. And I tell you, as the playoff push gets more and more thick for the Thunder, you're going to see Russell Westbrook play more minutes. So the time when Reggie is running the point is going to go down, and then the time when Reggie's playing alongside Westbrook is going to go down because of the presence of Dion Waiters. We saw Reggie played, what, was it 15 minutes
15
against
minutes.
Utah the
Yep.
other night. I think he might average up in the 20, in the 20 range, but the days of 25, 28, 30 minutes for Reggie Jackson are over.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think this is false as well. And I'll tell you what, when the Thunder acquired Dion Waiters, I'll freely admit I was among the skeptics, among the doubters, that this was a good move for the Thunder. And I guess we're only a couple games in, so we could all be proven dead wrong. But I talked to Kendrick Perkins after that Jazz game the other night, and I asked him about Dion Waiters. One of the first things he said was, he's a much better defender than I thought. That's coming from Mr. Defense, Kendrick Perkins. And I totally agree. Waiters may not be a lockdown defender, but he gives really high effort on the defensive end. He's acting like he wants to play defense. 4 steals against the Jazz. I think that defensively he gives the Thunder something they're not getting from those other reserve guards, which is somebody who actually put up a fight on defense. And then if you look offensively, I mean, he may not be the offensive threat that Reggie Jackson is, but we've even seen that part of Reggie's game go by the wayside, just not playing well. And I think that if you're looking at those two guys, if the trajectory continues the way it is, I don't think there's any doubt Dion Waiters gets more time than Reggie. All right, Barry, let's have our fun question of the week. So, it's been snowy and cold in some parts of the country. There's news that some Minnesota kids built a 12-foot tall sea turtle out of snow. I heard about a man who also built a 30-foot snowman. So, what would you build out of snow if you had the chance?
Well, you know what I would do is I would probably build some sort of castle, some sort of like maybe a dollhouse. The girls would love the dollhouse. A dollhouse made out of snow. They're completely eaten up with frozen. They love the whole concept. They got the costume, they got the wigs, they got the whole deal. If they had a snow castle out in the backyard, we would have an endless supply of theatrical productions. And let me tell you what, that's okay with me.
Yeah, it's unfortunate around here. We don't really ever have enough snow to even think about building a snowman, much less anything of great substance. And I'm really disappointed. As somebody who grew up in a place where we had snow and built snowmen, you're missing out, Oklahoma kids. I'm sorry. But I would say sort of a take on the castle, because I'm not that talented. I would go something igloo-ish, some sort of fort, because I've got a 2.5-year-old at home who, she knows what igloos are, so we'd get inside. It'd be a lot of fun. Something we could play in. That's what you got to build if you got some snow. All right. Now, what about OSU and OU basketball? Who's playing better right now?
I think it's clearly OSU, and I'm stunned at that. If somebody had told me there was going to be a point in the 2014-15 season where the Cowboys would be a better basketball team than the Sooners, I'd say you're nuts. But Travis Ford is coaching his butt off. His guys are playing hard. They're playing tough defense. They struggle on offense. They've only got 2 scorers, really, Forte and LeBron Nash, but those guys are producing. They're scrapping. They went to Ames, almost won, went to Lawrence, played tough. They're in there fighting. OU's had 2 straight dud games, getting blown out at West Virginia, losing at home to Kansas State. I think right now you can make the argument OSU's a better basketball team right now than the Sooners are.
You know, we talked about basketball just a week ago, and that was essentially right on the heels of OU going to Texas and beating the Horns. And, who would have thought a few days later OSU would beat Texas too? You sort of just thought, well, maybe they're both headed in that way. But that OU clunker against K-State, and then they follow it up with another really just horrible performance at West Virginia. Losing at West Virginia is not a bad thing. Yeah, a lot of teams are going to lose at West Virginia, but they weren't even competitive. I don't know what has happened to OU. I mean, how can you go to Texas and be so outsized by the Longhorns, play so well, show so much focus, and within a week's time, 8 days' time, 10 days' time, they've completely flipped the script. I don't know what's going on, but mentally, OU's got to get some things figured out. If they beat OSU on Saturday, maybe that changes things, but boy, OSU's playing great basketball right now. Kudos to the Pokes. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.